Welcome back to Coaches Exploring Clarity. Today we're going to get into part 2, the deep drivers, which starts with chapter 9, which is titled Innate Clarity and Peace of Mind. And it starts with a quote from Marshall McLuhan, media theorist. "We don't know who discovered water, but we know it wasn't the fish."
That's good.
Oh, that says it all, isn't it?
It says it all, yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. And the
well,
next thing, though, that comes to mind for me is that we do know now quite a lot about who discovered what, where, when, and how. And the most, and that is, of course, physics, quantum physics, whatever physics, and anything about quarks and quantums and quanti and nano dwarf stars or whatever they are. It's all that stuff. But what always fascinates me is how did some people already know this in the very beginning? So Genesis, first paragraph of Genesis from the Bible is, "Then there was light." And God created that and he saw it was all good. How did they know that? Because this is what this is saying. We don't know who discovered the water, but we know it wasn't the fish. It wasn't us that discovered this life and the air that we live in and the gravity. But somebody knew that long before there was even a microscope to learn about germs, or even a huge mega whatever it is telescope. I can't remember what it's called, to study the planets and the stars, or a photoelectron accelerator. Like, they knew already about this, so that just blows my mind. They put it in the Bible.
they had an insight, Elaine. Yes. There you go.
There you go.
They had an insight.
There you go. That's it.
It's also a much simpler existence back then, I would imagine.
Nothing better to do than look at the stars.
Less things on their mind, for sure.
Yes.
Don't get eaten. That
Yes.
Was... Yeah, don't get eaten. That was, yeah. Find food, don't get eaten. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first paragraph there that's highlighted, before Jamie goes into his explanation of him traveling to have a conversation, I don't know, or with a coach. "I don't need you to change, and I don't need anything from you. Whether you believe it or not, you don't need to do a thing." To me, that it speaks volumes, because how often are we in a situation where we're either anxious or feeling a bit confused about something, or worked up about taking action, and we can't see the way forward. So if you ignore something for a few minutes, walk away from it, get distracted, and you come back to it, and then you look at it and you're like, oh, what I wrote down on the page there was, there's nothing to be done. So often there is just nothing to be done, because they're just so many things that are, I don't know if self-resolvable is a term, but that's what's coming to mind. It's like we strive to fix things that are not broken, is what this said to me. We're like, Jamie's making this trip because he feels like something's broken. I need another tip or trick or book or guru or something. I'm trying to fix something that's broken. And he turns up and the guy's like, "It's not broken. There's nothing to fix." And it's like, shit, I just traveled for 2 hours to hear that. Paraphrasing. Yeah. And that's just what that says to me. There's nothing oftentimes there's just nothing to be done. Nothing broken.
Well, I think that ties directly on underneath the heading, your understanding of how life works, on 108. Your understanding of how life works and who you really are has more influence than any other factor over your experience of life and the results you get. And the part that jumped out at me there that relates to what you were just speaking to, Lynne, is the who you really are part.
Mm.
And that for all the talk in this book up to this point about a thought generated perceptual reality, the who you really are piece is understated, but so significant.
Yeah.
The notion that, you know, who you really are is not broken, cannot be broken.
Mm.
And the power that comes with realizing that for yourself.
An example, I don't actually watch much TV, but if there's a human interest thing, I often watch that. And right now there's something on British TV about the human body, and I have no idea what it's called. I only ever see the last 17 minutes for some reason. I don't know. Spookily enough, I catch it at the last 17 minutes. And they've been taking a group of teenagers and exposing them to naked bodies. All you know, naked bodies in every shape or form. And what the kids are seeing, and they're exactly speaking to this. So they're speaking to who you really are, not the aspects of you. So not your physical aspect, not your behaviors, not different elements of you. So they're speaking directly to the physical aspects and how the body changes and how every body is different. And the kids are having the realization, and it's actually quite emotive there. A couple of them last night were like, oh, wow, I've been stressing about this bit or that bit or some bit, and comparing myself to everybody else. And what they have seen is that, well, that's going to change anyway. That it's always different and it's always changing. And one of the kids last night actually said, it's not me. And I was like, wow, 15, it's not me. So for them to realize that just from hearing from people that that's not who you really are, that it's just your body, it's just the vessel, if you like. I just thought, wow, that's what a realization at 15. I've been stressing about this, it's not me. I thought that was very cool. And back to nothing to be fixed because it's not broken.
They're very powerful. The next thing I highlighted was under the heading, you have innate clarity and peace of mind. Clarity and peace of mind are the default position for people, the factory settings, which I just love. And to your point, Elaine, about like that's, you know, thousands of years ago, when this all started, they were at their default setting. they hadn't changed their settings yet. And we've gone through thousands of years of evolution, or millions of years of evolution, I suppose, where we've been tinkering with our default settings, and we're all out of whack now. But knowing that you can fall back into that default in an instant, I think is amazing. And I think it speaks to the nature of subtractive psychology. You know, you don't have to do anything. It's like what's getting in the way of just getting back to your default.
Yeah. And just to sort of nitpick on what you said there, you know, you said, Greg, we've been tinkering with our default settings. It would be perhaps more correct to say we've been trying to tinker with our default settings, but the fact is we cannot do anything with them because that's how they are.
Yeah.
Which I think is extraordinarily uplifting in a sense, which, you know, points to me for people who are maybe people who are terminally ill. But when we, you know, place that in the fact that who you really are and who you really are is always now in this moment, that is extraordinary. You know, it's extraordinarily hopeful for people who are believing that they are terminally ill or indeed are terminally ill, because there is no life after life, but life is only now. So anything that happens to your physical body between here and there, again, has got nothing to do with you, as Lynne said, and there's nothing to fix, which leaves a huge amount of space in your mind to allow the mind to do what it's supposed to do, which is set everything back to balance, where balance equals healing in a certain sense. And it's definitely, again, we don't need to do anything to allow the body to heal. In fact, the less we do, the better it is. The less we mess about or try to mess about with the default settings, the better we do.
Yeah. Jamie's saying of keeping your fingers out of the machinery is coming to mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and also the sense, that it's okay to do other things. Like I would go as far as to say, as if you like, a man can wear women's clothes or vice versa, or you can do facelifts or all sorts of things, and that's fine too. If you like, you can do anything you want, as long as that we understand that it's got nothing to do with who you really are, and there will be no change in that ever. That also the idea of who you really are is just perfect. It's not as though who you really are can ever be horrible, because it just can't.
Yeah.
So it's just like, and then make the choice is yours. So there's a sort of separation kind of necessary in the understanding of that, and again, nothing changes, and carry on with the life that you have. But again, everything will be different, coming from a different place.
That just took my mind all off in a whole other direction there. Thinking about all it did actually. Thinking about all the issues that come from people thinking who they really are is what we see.
Yeah.
And the physical aspects of it, and the length that we as a species think we have to go to make changes to that. And it goes back to the I'll be happy when thing from way back, whatever paragraph that was. Yeah, and imagine if people could come to some. Well, actually, at the bottom, almost at the bottom of page 110, it says here, the mind's a self-correcting system. Its set point is clarity, resilience, and well-being. If people knew that the set point was clarity, resilience, and well-being, would all the struggle and strive for something different in a physical form be there? I don't have the answer to that. I have no idea, but I wonder about that. All of that speaks again. Jamie talked here a little bit on page 110, going back to kids again, and the natural well-being and how we are as little people as opposed to how we evolve. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, the big
The
takeaway
next,
is
sorry.
the self-correcting nature of it, the fact that it's a default setting. I love on 113, he says, clarity isn't an achievement. It's a pre-existing condition. 'Cause I know for myself, like I've thought about it, I have thought about it as an achievement. Like if I could only get to clarity,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and it's just not the way to go about doing it. And then there's another line here that says innate clarity, well-being, and resilience exist within every person, which is kind of in my training as a coach with Jamie, is fundamental to how you work with clients, how you see your clients when they come in. That when you know that they have well-being, resilience, and clarity as an innate part of them, and there's nothing to fix, like it's such a different place to come to or come from working with people than thinking I need to fix them.
Yeah.
Or from them thinking you can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or that they need it.
Yeah.
I think when that's an opener for a conversation, it makes it turns the relationship on its head.
Yeah.
It turns it from a we're going to do something to them to a we're going to do something together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not,
and we're going to
not
point them to something that's fundamentally true.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah, and indeed, I think we have a job on our hands, because it's just, before that, Greg, the where Jamie says clarity isn't an achievement, as you said, it's the pre-existing condition, and then just before that, I'd underlined, the last the last part of the last sentence. It's more of a not doing thing, and it's also more of a not having thing. And it's kind of difficult to get a concept out there, let's say from a coaching point of view, well, what have you got to sell? Well, nothing. Well, what are you going to do about that? Well, nothing at all. Well, what am I going to get from this? Well, nothing. It's a bit weird if you think about it, like, because, as I read through again, all the rest of it, it's like every time it's sort of, I definitely want some of that.
Yeah.
But like, the thing is, you've already got it.
Yeah.
So there's nothing to want for. So the whole, the starting point is already wrong. Like, I want some of that, because that's just what we do. We look outside and say, I want some of that. Or I don't want it. So, and it's, right from the very beginning, it's the wrong take,
Yeah.
And how can you want for nothing?
Yeah. It reminds me, one of my many favorite Stephen Covey quotes is his definition of leadership, which was leadership is communicating so clearly to people their worth and potential that they come to see it in themselves. And it just occurred to me that, the notion of the worth and potential, or in this case, the clarity, well-being, and resilience, it's already there. Like as the leadership or the coaching, excuse me, is just pointing people to the fact that it's already there. They're already okay. They just don't think they are.
Yeah.
And if you can help them see the nature of thought and who they really are, that will all reveal itself to them through insight.
Yeah.
Makes me so excited when I'm able to take a Stephen Covey quote and relate it to the to the principles.
Well, actually, what it made me think of, what Stephen Covey quote made me think of there, I listened to a little bit of an interview this morning with the ex-CEO of Chipotle, which is a restaurant chain in the US. I don't know if you know Reagan, but I'm not familiar with Mexican restaurant chain. And the guy's success came from doing exactly that, enabling some 7,000 employees, maybe 70,000 actually, I think it had been 70,000, I'll go back and take a look, I think it was 70,000, see their potential, that they were a very important cog in the wheel. And where he started was how important, this is going to sound crazy, but they're a Mexican restaurant making a lot of salsa. And he figured out they weren't doing so well because their salsa wasn't as good as some other place. So he goes and checks it out. they were hand chopping salsa versus using a machine. So he convinced his, at the time he was COO, he convinced his management and then his downwards, right down, and went to people who had to chop onions to say, it's really important for me and for us that we help you be the best at chopping onions. That like you are gonna, it's like you're gonna make the business, and it turned around business, making an amazing salsa from people chopping onions because he engaged them and showed them and invited. That's a simplistic thing, but you know, invited their involvement and everything. It literally turned that business around. So it exactly speaks to that, the beauty of leadership when you're garnering the potential of all people who work in an entity as opposed to you know, the Ellen or whatever is the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And helping them see what they have to offer and what is there within them. It was quite lovely intellectual.
Shall we jump to the thought experiment?
The
and
thought
wrap this
experiment.
chapter up? So on page 113, thought experiment. What happens when you open to the possibility that clarity, resilience, and peace of mind are your default settings? The thing that comes to my mind immediately is just a big sigh of relief, like a big exhale. Whew.
Yeah, that's just
Yeah.
what I just said.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the words actually, again, you know, because it's also a way that we learn to formulate just a question, how, you know, how Jamie always uses them throughout the book in the best way possible. Just forget about, you know, the clarity and resilience, peace of mind are your default settings, but just the very words, you're open to the possibility.
Mm.
You know, that in itself is very interesting. It's very, like, it thinks something can be done if you just open yourself to it. And no, there's no result, there's no fix it, there's no nothing in there. Just open yourself to the possibility that. And it's such a good phrase to use, I think, in a lot of situations, especially when there is conflict.
Mm.
You know, open to the possibility, and it inspires sort of furthering and deepening of something. I'm looking again at the Lexis. I'm looking at the Lexis here, not the thought of the actual question itself, if you know what I mean.
No, but I think it's a very
Yeah.
powerful pickup on your part. I mean, just when you say conflict, like the things that come to mind is closed-mindedness, closeness,
Yeah.
Fighting for what you believe in, all this kind of stuff. And it's like, you know, we talked about a new paradigm, like the paradigm of being open.
Yeah.
You know, nothing can get through unless you're open to it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
opening up is kind of the first step.
And of course we have to have the consciousness part. We have to be aware that we're doing that.
Mm.
And, you know, often it is somebody like a coach who will be, you know, introducing somebody into the idea that they actually can be open to it, but it has to kind of, it brings it right back to us and sort of a little bit our responsibility, you know, if we're on board with this, to find the best way possible and to be open to anything that will help us move other people forward in this sense.
Mm. I'm going to add that to my repertoire of questions for clients.
Yeah.
Are you open to the possibility, ...
Blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
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 Yeah, because what I just thought there was oftentimes when people turn up, it's because not because they're open to the possibility of that, I was thinking, what happens if we actually turn those words around? What's the opposite of clarity, resilience, and peace of mind? When people are turning up, they're normally not in that space.
Mhm.
Or else they, everything would be obvious to them and they would be doing what would be obvious. So yeah, to be able to ask that question is, again, it's freeing, isn't it?
Yeah.
You mentioned freedom earlier, Greg.
Yeah.
It's freeing.
What's I don't know, when you just say freedom is kind of like, I think of being locked in a cage or thinking you're locked in a cage. And then it's like, are you open to the possibility that cage door actually isn't locked?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
And then you go over and try it and it opens and you're like, oh my God, what am I doing in here?
Yeah.
I could have walked out at
Yeah.
any time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. Well, thanks so much, guys.
That was nice.
I keep
Thank
posting
you
how
so
much
much.
fun I'm having, but
Yeah,
it's
me
true.
too.
That was good.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you.
Thank
See
you
you
both.
next time.